many of these sickening perverts and pedophiles and rapists and molesters of children surround Donald Trump? Why do they gravitate toward Donald Trump? This video is almost certainly going to be restricted by YouTube, so we'll just get that out of the way. Let me ask you a question. How many child rapists and child molesters are you associated with? I would assume it's not very many. I don't know any. I don't know anyone. I think we had an uncle that did something disgusting with a stepdaughter or something back in the 70s, but that person was just ostracized from the family, no longer persona non grata. That's just not the way it is with Republicans, though. Why is it that every time you hear about a conviction, it's somebody real close to Donald Trump? Not only was Donald Trump best friends for a decade and a half with notorious child rapist Jeffrey Epstein, he's also naming people to high positions within his administration. White House faith advisor, his old faith advisor, not Paula White, not and strike 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 and strike, not her, but a man named Robert Morris. Weird how there's so many of them that surround Donald Trump. It really is a perplexing question. Here's a headline. Let's do this. I'm going to play for you just a brief minute and a half, minute and 45 seconds or so from Fox 4, the Dallas-Fort Worth Fox affiliate there, talking about the conviction, the guilty plea from this evangelical pastor who Donald Trump saw fit to name his White House faith advisor the first time around. And then we'll talk about what's happening here on the other side.
Gateway Church founder Robert Morris has pleaded guilty to sex abuse charges. Good evening. I'm Steve Eager.
I'm Heather Hayes. Morris appeared in an Oklahoma courtroom this afternoon to enter his guilty plea on 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a child, all stemming from incidents dating back to the 1980s. Fox 4's Amelia Jones joining us now live with the latest. Amelia.
Heather, Steve, according to the plea agreement, Robert Morris received a 10-year suspended sentence with the first 6 months to be spent in an Oklahoma jail. He will also have to register as a sex offender. Morris pleaded guilty to 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a child from sexual abuse incidents that date back to the 1980s against Cindy Clemishire when she was just 12 years old. Clemishire, the allegations, she brought them against Morris. They were thrust into the spotlight last year. It wasn't the first time she made them, though. They received attention following a report from a religious watchdog blog. Shortly after, Morris resigned from Gateway Church, the megachurch out in Southlake, and he was indicted on child sex abuse charges earlier this year. Clemishire was in court today and said in part, quote, "Today is a new beginning for me, my friends, and family who have been by my side through this horrendous journey." Clemishire said, "I leave this courtroom today not as a victim, but as a survivor."
Here's what's amazing. The guy who pleaded guilty to these crimes against children, before he was, I guess, forced, there was no other choice but for him to plead guilty. Before he did so, he was saying that he was playing this down, calling this 12-year-old child that he abused a young lady. Yeah. This from the Daily Beast. Trump faith advisor finally admits he molested 12-year-old. Robert Morris will serve just 6 months of his 10-year sentence. Just getting preferential treatment, apparently. A megachurch founder who was a Donald Trump faith advisor has pleaded guilty to years of sexual abuse. Morris, the founder of Texas's Gateway Church, was indicted in March. In 2024, Cindy Clemishire had publicly claimed Morris had sexually assaulted her multiple times when she was underage. Morris responded with a quasi-confession, here we go, telling the Christian Post that it was inappropriate sexual behavior with a young lady. Clemishire was 12 when the abuse began. Donald Trump faith advisor. Quote, "It was kissing and petting and not intercourse, but it was wrong. Morris said. Clemenshire recalled there being more than 100 instances of abuse by Morris over 4.5 years, beginning in December 1982, according to the indictment. Morris had been visiting Clemenshire's family in Oklahoma that Christmas as a traveling evangelist. Clemenshire said Morris invited her into his room and told her to lie back. She said Morris then felt her breasts and under her panties. Quote, "Never tell anyone about this," Clemenshire said Morris told her. "It will ruin everything." Donald Trump's faith advisor. How many of these sickening perverts and pedophiles and rapists and molesters of children surround Donald Trump? Why do they gravitate toward Donald Trump? And when is the Republican Party going to wake the f up and start dealing with the evil within their ranks? Even this response from this state representative Jeff Leach from Plano, Texas, saying, going forward, we must do all we can to support abuse victims like Cindy, who had their childhood robbed from her and has to live with the shame and pain for decades before seeing legal justice prevail today. How can we protect girls like Cindy from predators like Morris who surround Donald Trump? How can we do so? Well, it'll start there, Jeff Leach, by holding Donald Trump accountable. Instead, we have a Speaker of the House who's protecting a credibly accused rapist of children, Donald Trump, not releasing the files involving the convicted rapist of children, Jeffrey Epstein. The call's coming from within the House, from inside the House, Jeff Leach, Donald Trump, Mike Johnson, the late Jeffrey Epstein. It's time to look within to deal with this. These are all rhetorical questions. I don't know the answers. I know that there's certainly a culture of denial within the Republican Party that everything's fake news, everything is a witch hunt, everything is a hoax, everything is a scam, everything is fraud. So it's easy to deny everything, even when there are innocent children being victimized, being raped, being molested. That's not important, though. Those victims aren't important, though, because Donald Trump, he needs to be protected. Sick.
These are critical consequences, and it's the Democrats' fault, and they have a chance to reverse course, and they should.
Somebody earlier on our program said that Russell Vogt went ahead and signed off so that every military member does get paid.
There are a couple things we know. We know that it's the job of Donald Trump's press secretaries to lie, to flap their lips and lie constantly, to cover for the criminality, the corruption, the cronyism, the immorality, the unethical, the conflicts. You've got to cover for all of that for Donald Trump. But we know these things to be true. But sometimes the lies are so outsized, so outrageous that even Fox News, even Dana Perino from Fox News, a former White House press secretary herself, even she is forced to say, actually, Karoline Leavitt, that's not what we're being told. Do you have different information? She makes it as easy and as palatable as possible for Karoline Leavitt to recover from the getting called out. But it's a fact check nonetheless. And in this clip, Karoline Leavitt is trying to say that there are millions of active duty military members who are not being paid because the government is shut down right now, even though Russell Vogt has already said, oh yeah, I signed off on that. They're getting paid. All of the red interests, all of the Republican, the things they feign interest in, that they act like they care about, those things will be covered, but not the other things. And this lie was so outrageous that in the moment, she got a real-time fact check from Fox News. Watch this.
So there is zero excuse for them to shut down our government right now, and they know it. And very soon, the American people and their constituents back home in states from New Hampshire to Nevada to Arizona to Florida are going to start feeling the pinch of this Democrat-led shutdown. We have millions of troops who are currently going without pay. We have women, children, and infants who cannot apply for a very important WIC program for that critical food and life assistance. And you also look at air traffic controllers who are now having to work without pay. These are critical consequences, and it's the Democrats' fault. And they have a chance to reverse course, and they should.
Somebody earlier on our program said that Russell Vogt went ahead and signed off so that every military member does get pay. But are you saying that they're working now without?
Well, we are certainly looking into how we can fix this problem. And look, we have $0 coming into the federal government right now because the Democrats shut it down. So what Russ Vogt is working diligently on is examining how we can fix this mess to ensure that critical funding continues, that we can get people paid. But the Democrats are making that very difficult. And that's why the president put out a statement this morning saying that we're going to start looking across the board at layoffs and at agencies that we feel do not best serve the American taxpayer that may need to be halted or permanently cut.
It's threats, it's threats, it's threats, it's threats. It's threats against blue states, it's against blue governors, against blue voters. That's all this is. And when are people going to start waking up and not allow these talking points in this propaganda to work? The Democrats shut it down. Republicans control the House, they control the Senate, and they control the executive branch of government. 2/3 of our government is controlled exclusively by Republicans. If they want their budget passed, if they want to make things happen, make it happen. You control it. Why should it be up to Democrats to advance the agenda of Donald Trump? It should not be. And also, it is rich for Karoline Leavitt to act like she gives a single shit about the WIC program, Women, Infants, and Children, a nutritional sustenance program, an assistance program, what she call it, a critical program for life and assistance, a program that Donald Trump is already committed to doing away with, to gutting through the one big beautiful bill, just like Medicaid, just like health care for Americans. They don't care about any of that. What they care about is blame the thing that is already on their bingo card. It's already on the agenda to destroy. And now they're just going to use that as an excuse. There's going to be pain if Democrats agree and vote for a continuing resolution because of rescissions that they'll do. The policy that after something is passed, then they can do away with it or cut it after it's already been agreed upon. So there's going to be harm if they agree and go along with Donald Trump, and there's going to be harm if they don't agree with Donald Trump. You can't blame Democrats for this. Not when you control 2/3 of the government. You control the entire executive branch and the entire legislative branch. Enough. Just enough. Luckily, I don't know what compelled Dana Perino there to do the fact check, but luckily she was there to call the shot and say, well, actually, we're hearing something different. I don't know. I don't watch Fox News on a loop, so I don't know exactly when or which guest it was that said that Russell Vogt signed off on paying the troops. But it must have been in quick succession that clip was played or that interview was done and that statement was made on their air. Otherwise, it probably would have just been allowed to just fester out there, her lies, because Fox News isn't in it to promote the truth, to report the truth. They're there to propagandize. They're there to further the agenda of Donald Trump. And it's special moments like this that give me just a little bit of hope, maybe enjoyment. I don't know how to categorize it.
Could you kind of give us a little bit of an inside scoop on regards to your plans in 2026,
I have big plans. I have big plans. I want to survive. That's one of my big plans.
Donald Trump's got some big plans for 2026, everybody. Big plans, bold, aggressive plans, looking to the future. What are those plans? This just in, he plans to survive. He's not setting the bar very high, is he? A little doofus from One American News interviewed Donald Trump. I don't know his name. We'll just call him the OAN dipshit, I guess. And in this obsequious, bootlicking, sycophantic interview, unlike really, it's become normal for this to happen on Fox News and Newsmax and these other outlets. But OAN is just especially egregious in their ass-kissery of Donald Trump because they want more interviews with Donald Trump. So they have to please the dear leader, who, by the way, isn't looking good. I don't know if it's the makeup that he puts on and then he's wiping his nose and it's rubbing off on the end of his nose, but it's like the reverse Rudolph effect. Something's going on and it's not good. But I want to play for you this question. First, Donald Trump is rambling about how powerful the economy is, and people are doing better than they've ever done, which is just a fabrication of a new reality for Donald Trump. The reporter, of course, completely agrees. What's he say after Donald Trump says, we're the hottest? You know, I was talking to the king of Saudi Arabia, who said, oh, you got the hottest country in the world, bro. And the kid says, we certainly are the hottest country. And then asks the questions about his 2026 plans, wherein Donald Trump just starts talking about survival. The unhealthy, cankle-possessing president of the United States is worried about survival. There's also some rambling about political rhetoric and how it's making things dangerous, but it's Donald Trump's health that I think is top of mind for him. Watch the OAN dipshit kiss the president's ass in this interview.
People are doing better than they've ever done right now. We have no inflation. I inherited a mess, and now we have a country. I'll tell you, I was with the king of Saudi Arabia. He said, a year ago you were in a dead country, and now you have we're the hottest country in the world right now.
We certainly are. And do you have any big plans for 2026? Do you plan on hitting the campaign trail at all and helping out some of the candidates? Could you kind of give us a little bit of an inside scoop on regards to your plans in 2026,
I have big plans. Yeah, I have big plans. I want to survive. That's one of my big plans. You look at what's going on, it's crazy. You know, the rhetoric that these crazy Democrats are using is very dangerous. They've made politics very dangerous, and you're going to be very happy with the job we're going to do.
Well, it's fascinating you mentioned that rhetoric. Senator John Fetterman from Pennsylvania, he actually put out a thing on X saying, quote, unchecked extreme rhetoric like labels as Hitler or fascist will foment more extreme outcomes. Political violence is always wrong, no exceptions. Do you think he's right with that description?
Well, he's right, and it can bounce back on the other side, too. You know, it's a two-way street, and it can bounce back the other way. What they're doing is very dangerous. It's very bad. And there probably hasn't been this kind of intensity, maybe in a long time in this country. And that intensity, that kind of intensity is very bad. They're using rhetoric that's very dangerous. And, you know, you have stupid people doing it, like Crockett. She's a low IQ person. And others that are not smart people. And then you have some smart people doing it, too. And those are the ones you have to be more careful of. So they've got to stop it. They've got to stop it fast.
What they're doing is very dangerous, very bad, says Donald Trump, who just the other day at Charlie Kirk's memorial said that he hates Democrats. He hates his opponents.
I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent.
And not only that, if we go back and just look at this with history in mind, with facts in mind, with the actual reality in mind, how many times has Donald Trump demonized and called his opponents fascists or evil or sick or twisted or diabolical or depraved or vermin or whatever else? Here's just a brief reminder.
The divide in American politics today is between these far-left fascists led by Harris and her group. We have a fascist person running who's incompetent. She's a Marxist, communist, fascist, socialist. She's not actually a socialist. She's gone past that. Somebody's got to explain this woman. There's a radical left Marxist, communist, fascist.
So they can save it. They can save it. To the health question of Donald Trump being worried about survival going into the next year, which kind of piggybacks off the thing I've been saying, that I don't know if he's going to live another year. I'm obviously not a medical professional, but it's not looking good, especially when he's recognizing it. Here's a headline from the Daily Beast. Trump, 79, reveals one of his big plans for 2026 is to survive. The Republican is on course to be the oldest sitting president in U.S. history. Trump's fears about his own mortality follow a long-running period of concern about the president's health. Trump, who is on course to be the oldest sitting U.S. president in history, is frequently spotted in public with heavy makeup covering large, unsightly bruises on his hand. He also sports swollen cankles. Dude. Thank you, Daily Beast. He also sports swollen cankles due to his chronic venous insufficiency, a common condition in men over 70, where weakened vein valves prevent blood from circulating properly in his fat, gross legs. That was my editorialization. Trump has also become increasingly open about concerns that he may not get into heaven once he dies. This includes admitting he desperately wants to broker an end to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, as it would improve his chances of getting into the pearly gates. Quote, "I'm hearing I'm not doing well," Trump told Fox News in August. "I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. If I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons." Trump even used his fears about the afterlife as a fundraising ploy while referencing the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, in which he suffered a minor injury to his ear. Quote, "I want to try and get to heaven," Trump's super PAC wrote in a message to supporters. "I certainly wasn't supposed to survive an assassin's bullet, but by the grace of Almighty God, I did," said the famously not religious or religious educated man, Donald Trump, in a campaign fundraising email. Anyway, what is there to say that will not get me in trouble? Well, I guess there's nothing. Anyway, what do you think? Try not to get in trouble. You can comment in the comments. Before you do, though, please subscribe to this channel on YouTube. It's free to subscribe. Click the subscribe button. You can also go over and click like or follow on the Facebook page, Dollemore Daily. I would appreciate it very much. Then you can sound off in the comments wherever you're watching the video, and you can call the voicemail line. Remember, keep yourself out of trouble, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me, daily@dollemore.com.
Project 2025, I've said 100 times, I know nothing about it. I had nothing to do.
I think I want this video to serve as a reminder of a few different things. One, Donald Trump cannot be trusted. Everything he says is a lie. Virtually everything that comes out of his mouth or from his thumbs on Truth Social is a lie. Number one. Two, commentators and media analysis types, the analysts and the talking heads and the pundits, the people like Nora O'Donnell and Anna Kasparian, people who got it so wrong, they're not to be trusted. Okay? Donald Trump just posted yesterday on Truth Social, yesterday morning, "I have a meeting today with Russ Vought, he of Project 2025 fame, to determine which of the many Democrat agencies," I don't know what a Democrat agency is, but which of the Democrat agencies, most of which are a political scam, he recommends to be cut, and whether or not those cuts will be temporary or permanent. "I can't believe the radical left Democrats gave me this unprecedented opportunity. They are not stupid people, so maybe this is their way of wanting to quietly and quickly make America great again, President DJT." Remember, of course, you've heard about Project 2025. There's a website that is tracking the progress of Project 2025. We are currently sitting at about 48% complete. Donald Trump's only been in office for, 10 months, 9 months, 9 months and change, and nearly 50% of Project 2025 has been accomplished. Now, Donald Trump disavowed Project 2025 disavowed. Really heavy air quotes here. He said in July 5th, 2024, I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who is behind it. I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Anything they do, I wish them luck, but I have nothing to do with them. This, when he said it, was a lie. It's a lie now, it was a lie then, and it was clearly a lie. Anybody who understands the lay of the land, you don't have to be a political commentator on YouTube to do so. You out there in the audience knew this was a lie when you read it. When anybody who's paid attention at all to Donald Trump, with even a cursory understanding of politics, knew this was a lie. 6 days later, he said this on Truth Social. I know nothing about Project 2025. I have not seen it. I have no idea who is in charge of it. And unlike our very well-received Republican platform, had nothing to do with it. The radical left Democrats are having a field day, however, trying to hook me into whatever policies are stated or said. It's pure disinformation on their part. By now, after all these years, everyone knows where I stand on everything. DJT. Indeed, we do. That's why we knew it was a lie when you said you didn't know anything about Project 2025. And now we're learning that that was a lie, because what is it? Who is he? Russell Vogt, he of Project 2025 fame. And here we are, almost 50% of it completed. There's one more that I want to share with you before we get into discrediting people who should never have had credibility in the first place. People who are liars or grifters or just not smart enough to do this work. Lying again about Project 2025, Donald Trump said on August 22nd, which she knows, and so do all Democrats, that I have absolutely nothing to do with. Interesting. CNN just maybe hours ago put out this little mashup of Donald Trump denying Project 2025. Then we'll get to Anna Kasparian and Norah O'Donnell and CNN and Politico. And there are many, many others who dropped the ball, who shit the bed, who did not do their job, and they should not be trusted again. First, the mashup.
Speaking of Trump, he said this morning that I have a meeting today with Russ Vogt of Project 2025 fame. Of course, that was the project that Democrats demonized, went after hard in the campaign, saying, look at this, and they tried to campaign very hard on it. And then Donald Trump, when he was running for the second term, said, well, this Project 2025 thing, I don't really know much about it.
Some on the right, severe right, came up with this Project 25, and I don't even know. They are extreme. I mean, they're seriously extreme. But I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it. I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. Project 2025, I've said 100 times, I know nothing about it. I had nothing to do.
And today, meeting of Russ Vogt of Project 2025 fame.
Fame. You know, I mean, I think it's another example of voters having to be sober-minded about the choice that was made in November 2020 and the effects of that choice. Elections have consequences. Even if they didn't believe or they chose to believe what President Trump said, the writing was on the wall that Project 2025 was really going to guide and shape this administration, and we're seeing that. The question now is, how will voters respond in the midterms and then moving forward?
Yeah, one thing is
right. Self-evident. Very obvious. Everybody knew. You know when you get off a plane and the pilot gets on, he's like, look, we know you have a choice when you fly. We just want to thank you for choosing. Name your airline here, right? It's the same thing with what we do here. The people in my cohort. I know you have a choice when you click on a video to hear about analysis or opinion from somebody, some dipshit like me. You have a choice. And I'm thankful, like the airline pilot, I'm thankful you chose me. And I try to be reliable. I say what I believe, despite the consequences, the demonetization or people trying to attack me, my life being threatened, my life's she was threatened to be raped and murdered by a Trump supporter. we know the lay of the land, but I thank you for being here. And I do try to be reliable. I try to be accurate. In fact, sometimes I go a little overboard, maybe patting myself on the back or tooting my own horn about the things that I got right in advance of the thing happening. But some of this stuff is easy. You don't need me to tell you that Donald Trump was up to his neck into Project 2025 despite his denials. You didn't need me for that. So when someone like Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks was out there carrying water for Donald Trump, carrying water to advance the agenda of Donald Trump by backing up his lies, his obvious lies that he was not involved in Project 2025, she should be somebody who's on your persona non grata list. She should be on your white list of individuals never to be taken seriously again. Remember this moment of her denying the very reality that the rest of us existed in.
So both Politico and the New York Times are now reporting that Donald Trump is unlikely to implement Project 2025 as the blueprint for his second term, for his administration. And he is instead opting to work with a completely different right-wing think tank called the America First Policy Institute. Now, the Heritage Foundation penned the 900 pages of that policy book for Project 2025. They penned it before Trump was even the nominee for the Republican Party. And all of the reporting around that I had debunked, but people didn't believe me. Now that the election's over, it looks like the media is willing to admit, yeah, it looks like Trump's not going to do Project 2025.
Obvious to the rest of us was not obvious to Anna Kasparian. Obvious to the rest of us was not obvious to Norah O'Donnell.
He has been consistent, and again, Google Project 2025, about what he thinks about Social Security and why he thinks it is nothing that should be supported, what his intentions to cut Medicare and Medicare benefits, his intention, look again at Project 2025, to repeal the $35 a month cap on insulin that we have put in place.
You know that Donald Trump has disavowed Project 2025. He says that is not his campaign plan.
As you know, I am a former prosecutor. His DNA is all over it. All over it. His running mate wrote the foreword to the book of the author of Project 2025. I believe Donald Trump's name appears at least 300 times in Project 2025, and it is a blueprint, a detailed blueprint that is about the danger and the detail of what Donald Trump and his allies plan if he is in the White House again.
Obvious to the rest of us, apparently not obvious, even to CNN, who I just played their mashup from the other day or hours ago. And they had a fact check written by Daniel Dale, who's typically pretty reliable. This was the headline there, fact check. Harris campaign social media account has repeatedly deceived with misleading edits and captions. Is that right, Daniel Dale? What'd you have to say about the Project 2025 thing? The at Kamala HQ account frequently invokes Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation's think tank's right-wing policy proposals for the next Republican administration. Project 2025 is not Trump's initiative, and he has said he disagrees with some of its proposals, wrote Daniel Dale. How about this one from Politico? Trump team preps list of banned staffers. The names include conservatives linked to Project 2025 and Republicans viewed as disloyal to the former president. And then inside the article, former President Donald Trump's transition operation is compiling lists of names of people to keep out of a second Trump administration. The lists of undesirable staffers include people linked to Project 2025 policy blueprint. Is that right? Interesting how Russell Vought, one of the authors of Project 2025, is the head of the Office of Budget Management and Budget, OMB. Interesting, huh? Interesting how the administration is top to bottom replete with Project 2025 Heritage Foundation ghouls. Weird. Weird Politico. Weird CNN. Weird Norah O'Donnell. Weird. Progressive Anna Kasparian. Why does the media insist on carrying water for Donald Trump? Why? Why does even self-proclaimed progressive outlet people like Anna Kasparian continue to do so? It's a rhetorical question, I guess, because I don't know the answer to it, but I would ask you. Why are they laundering Donald Trump's lies? Assisting him in the dissemination of propaganda in order to get elected. They give credibility to Donald Trump's lies. People believed it, and now here we are with Project 2025 nearly 50% completed. Thank you, Anna Kasparian. Thank you for that. I appreciate your acumen, your big political brain, breaking down complex concepts for the rest of us to digest and understand. You're doing a great job, sister. Fantastic. And it's not just people who are commentators. Norah O'Donnell is a journalist, like a straight news person. Same with Daniel Dale, the fact checker. Same with whatever moron wrote the Politico article. We need to do a better job, I'll end here, we need to do a better job of choosing those that we respect, of offering that respect. We need to do a better job of rewarding those who get it right and then jettisoning those who do not, whether that be support, whether that be views, whether that be likes, whether that be just basic online clout, whatever nonsense that is. But I'm very tired of batting cleanup here, trying to cover for the mistakes of people who are loosely in my field, like Norah O'Donnell, who are directly in my cohort, like Anna Kasparian. It's not a hard, of all things to get wrong, when you get the easy shit wrong, it's a real problem.
If slavery never happened, then you would be in a grass hut.
Yeah.
Right? Well, we need reparations. Your reparations are that you get to live in America.
White Christian nationalism is a cancer in the United States. Racism itself is a vile, putrid, disgusting disease that is antithetical to the belief of any reputable faith at all. Joel Webbin is somebody I've talked about many, many times. The clip I'm getting ready to play may be the most vile that I've ever shared of Joel Webbin and his dipshit little sidekick, in which he says, one, he does like a racist imitation of a black person saying that I'm a king, just gross. But he's telling black people who are upset about the condition of our country and their continued treatment after, 250 years and hundreds of years prior to that, when it wasn't the United States technically, but it was just a European colony, that you should be thankful that you're here. You should be happy that you're here. You should be offering thanks that you're here. He says, if slavery never happened, you should be thankful because if it never happened, you'd be in a grass hut right now. He says that the greatest moment in the history of any brown or black country is the moment that white man's ships landed on your shores. This is a man of God, a self-proclaimed pastor, a preacher, a teacher, a communicator of the philosophies of Jesus the Christ, telling black people to shut up and be thankful for what you have. Watch this, I hope in horror, and then we'll talk about the nonsense, racist, white supremacy of these ideas on the other side.
Why do white evangelicals struggle with the idea of race? Why do they
Yeah.
struggle with
That's
those
what he's
Europeans that colonized and brought Christianity to the world? It
Yeah,
was,
and why are you constantly apologizing for that and struggling with white guilt?
Like race is a real thing. It's not just a social construct. It's in DNA.
Right, because even the
blood, and bone
conservative
marrow.
guys, when they pushed back against, BLM and we was kings, and all this kind of like black people are great and the only things that's ever been bad about them is because they're victims and have been oppressed and blah, 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 blah. And so when BLM and wokeness and all that stuff was going on, there were conservatives who pushed back. They were a little cowardly and a little late, but eventually they pushed back. But even the ones who pushed back, they pushed back to say, black people aren't that great, but neither are white people, and And you're doing identity politics, by, saying that, I'm black and these are my people, but no one should be doing it. Like the way that it was pushed back against, instead of saying, because what should have been said, and I'll probably get clipped for this, but what should have been said is, hey, cut it out. You need to grow up, stop throwing a fit. You're throwing a tantrum, stop being a little boy. You're whining and crying about something that's ultimately your fault.
Yeah.
Stop blaming it on other people. It's your fault. Because here's the deal. It's like, well, slavery. The richest black people on God's green earth are African Americans. If slavery never happened, then you would be in a grass hut.
Yeah.
Right? Well, we need reparations. Your reparations are that you get to live in America. You're welcome. You're welcome.
You get to have the Christian religion.
That's
live
right.
better than your ancestors.
The greatest moment in history for any brown or black country is the moment that the white man's ships arrive on your shore.
If slavery never happened, then you'd be in a grass hut. Your reparations are that you get to live in America. You're welcome. You're welcome. The greatest moment in history for any black or brown person, says Joel Webbin, is the moment that white man's ships arrived on your shore. Let me tell you about what black people suffered through after those white men's ships arrived on their shores. They got hundreds of years of enslavement, oppression, abuse, torture, murder, rape. Not only did black former slaves get nothing after emancipation, President Andrew Johnson, a white Southerner, he made certain that white enslavers were made whole. Reparations, but not for former slaves, reparations for rich white slave owners. After the Civil War, blacks were kept poor, systematically poor, and with almost zero ability to grow wealth. Thousands of black prisoners were leased by Southern states to former white enslavers in what were called convict leases, where blacks, again, worked for free while white men made themselves rich again from their labor and upon their broken backs. There were also sharecropping, which grossly exploited black work ethic while allowing the former enslavers to maintain their power and to continue to grow their wealth, their white wealth. Again, ultimately passing that on to future generations of their white descendants. Of course, during this time, there were also Jim Crow laws in place all over the South, which made it illegal for black Americans to occupy the same spaces as whites. Hospitals and bathrooms, private buildings, elevators, phone booths, restaurants, water fountains, everything that was white, which was everything, was off limits for black Americans. Black Americans. Jim Crow laws also intended to force black people into indentured servitude, to limit their voice in the political system by stripping away their constitutional rights to vote, and to control where they live. It was the American legal system explicitly designed for oppressing them. And listen, much like today after the Civil War, when dudes got out of the military, like the guys I served with, they gravitated to jobs within the legal systems. Many former Confederate soldiers took jobs as police and even judges to make certain that there was no justice at any level for black citizens. And thousands upon thousands upon thousands of black Americans who found themselves in the crosshairs of those enforcing these Jim Crow laws were met with violence and death through lynching. Again, much like today. And the few black communities that were able to band together and prosper, accumulating some modicum of wealth, were violently targeted by white men and destroyed. An example of this would be what took place in the early 20s in Tulsa, Oklahoma's Greenwood district, better known as Black Wall Street. It wasn't just Jim Crow, though. Blacks returning from valiant combat service in World War II were once again betrayed by the United States when they didn't get full access to their GI Bill benefits. Whites got them, just like I did when I got into the Marine Corps. Whites benefited. Whites were fully able to take part in wealth building programs offered through the New Deal, but not their black fellow veterans. And when someone was able to scrape together enough to buy a home, they were precluded from doing so because of calculated discriminatory housing practices called redlining. You know this though, Joel, right? So tell me, Joel Webbin, your goofy little sidekick maybe, or anybody else for that matter, black people should be thankful? Thankful? America wasn't a different nation back then. In so many ways, we are the same country, making the same mistakes, abusing the same peoples, reinforcing those same old traumas. Donald Trump is just admitting through his emissaries, through his spokeswoman here, that he isn't the president of everyone. He's only the president of MAGA. He's only the president of those who agree with his agenda. Right now, without equivocation at all, we are witnessing all-out assault in this country. War declarations on blue cities and blue states by red troops and Donald Trump. That's what we're witnessing. But we're also witnessing another kind of assault, another kind of direct attack on blue cities, blue states, Democratic voters, people who chose not to vote for Donald Trump for very real and valid reasons. And that is through the itemization, the priorities that we make relative to what we spend money on in this country. And Donald Trump is now weaponizing this current budget battle to rescind funds that go to blue states. And Karoline Leavitt was asked about this. And I'm going to play a brief snippet from her interview where she's kind of pressed about this on Fox News. But before I do, I want to read a headline and 2 paragraphs to set the stage. This is from the New Republic. Karoline Leavitt says it's okay to target Americans repped by Democrats. The White House press secretary sees no problem with targeting Americans in the government shutdown. The Trump administration is doubling down on its shutdown ultimatum to Democrats. Surrender to our backward austerity bill, or we'll rip more funding and resources from the hands of your constituents. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt was asked Thursday about Trump's promise to work with Office of Management and Budget Director and Project 2025 architect Russell Vought to axe so-called Democrat agencies in the government. Is that real? A Fox News host asked Leavitt, or is that a negotiating tactic? And here, here is her answer to that question and the exchange that preceded it and that followed.
So on that, I wanted to ask you about that because he mentioned Russ Vought in that. I think that came out about 8 o'clock this morning about cutting certain programs that they deem are not necessary. Is that real or is that a negotiating tactic?
Oh, it's very real. And the Democrats should know that they put the White House and the president in this position. And if they don't want further harm on their constituents back home, then they need to reopen the government. It's very simple. Pass the clean continuing resolution, and all of this goes away. We would not be having these discussions here at the White House today if not for the Democrats voting to shut the government down. This is an unfortunate consequence, and the president and Russ Vought will be meeting on that later today.
There's a whole bunch here. One, they're falling into the trap that so many people do. They're not falling into it. They want this trap to be out there in the ether. That if, let's say California, for instance, they're going to punish California and California voters, not fully realizing, I think they do realize it, but I'm using kind of nebulous language here, inaccurate language here, not fully recognizing, we'll say publicly recognizing that there are millions and millions and millions of Republican voters in California who voted for Donald Trump, who will be harmed because Donald Trump is now punishing the radical left Democrats. There are all kinds of Democrats who live in Texas alongside Republicans. There are all kinds of Republicans who live in Massachusetts. So Donald Trump isn't just hurting blue voters. He's hurting Americans. And this is where this administration is different than even his first administration. Orders of magnitude worse is he views these states as binary. If he didn't win the state, it's all Democrats and they should be harmed. That's where the troops should be sent to declare war, to wage war, to train our troops how to murder, how to kill, how to be maximally lethal, as the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, says. There's another element too. Let me read this paragraph from the New Republic. This language from Karoline Leavitt that you just heard reads like a hostage letter, and it essentially is. The Trump administration has already frozen $18 billion in infrastructure projects in New Jersey and New York, and announced cuts to $8 billion in energy funding from 16 blue states as well. The limits of this wanton retribution are unclear, as the Trump administration seems giddy to do real harm to American citizens and communities represented by Democrats who refuse to silently fall in line. And that is exactly what she just admitted to in that clip. That the Democrats are forcing our hand. We're forced to only hurt Democrats. They're forcing us to do this. This is like an abusive relationship kind of language. Like domestic violence language. Like, oh, you made me do it. You made me do it. You made me ruin things. You made me stop funding for veterans. You made me stop funding for hungry kids and sick people. You made me take away millions of people's health care. You made me increase the premiums of people's health care by threefold. You made me do it. Because Democrats don't want to take part in advancing the agenda of Donald Trump. Or at least all but two in the Senate chose not to advance the agenda of Donald Trump. There's going to be pain if they agree. There's going to be pain if we don't agree. Donald Trump is making certain of that. And why, pray tell, would we choose to enjoin ourselves with Donald Trump's destructive agenda? Why would we take part in funding a government that's kidnapping people, disappearing people, arresting citizens, detaining citizens in handcuffs, zip tying vanfuls of naked children from their apartments, zip tying them, detaining them while everyone's papers are looked through? Who's a citizen? You have to prove it. Why would Democrats take part in that? I can tell you this, I would be screaming from the rooftops, or if this is a rooftop, I would be calling out Democrat after Democrat after Democrat if they joined Donald Trump in funding that kind of nonsense, like I do every day, complaining about the complicity of certain Democrats in our party. This is disgusting. This is an assault on the very nature of our politics in this country. Donald Trump is just admitting through his emissaries, through his spokeswoman here, that he isn't the president of everyone. He's only the president of MAGA. He's only the president of those who agree with his agenda. Because if you don't, you're subject to arrest. If you don't, you're subject to firing. If you don't, you're subject to expulsion from the country, or being denaturalized, or having your citizenship revoked, or whatever other fascist fucking nonsense he's trying to put out there. Good on the Democrats. Do not bend. Do not break. Do not carry water for the agenda of this fascist president. Or there will be political consequences. Because Donald Trump wanted to give away the property of the United States to the King of England, to a monarch, and a guy lost his job because of it. Not only does Donald Trump think he is some kind of a king, some kind of a royal figure, a sovereign, he believes we are his subjects. He also believes by virtue of being elected president that everything in the United States is his. And it might seem hyperbolic. It might seem a little bit out there. Oh, that's a weird claim to make. What do you mean by that? Well, let me read you this headline from the New York Times, where Donald Trump tried to give a sword as a gift that belonged to a museum, but technically it's the property of the United States. Doesn't mean it's Donald Trump's to give away. And he tried to give it to King Charles in Great Britain, The museum curator said no, and now that guy's out of a job. Donald Trump thinks he's our king. He thinks that possessions of the United States are his to give away. This is the headline from the New York Times. After declining to give Trump a sword for King Charles, a museum leader is out. The departure of Todd Arrington, who led the Dwight D. Eisenhower Presidential Library and Museum, came after the administration sought a sword from its collection as a gift for King Charles. It's not Donald Trump's. It's the property of the United States of America. President Donald Trump wanted a gift for King Charles. Ahead of his state visit to Britain last month, the administration began looking for an artifact relating to President Dwight D. Eisenhower that the president could give the British monarch. A sword, perhaps, or something else that spoke to Eisenhower's role as the supreme commander of the Allied forces in World War II. Through a personal email address, an administration official approached the Dwight D. Eisenhower Presidential Library, Museum, and Boyhood Home in Abilene, Kansas, which has at least one Eisenhower sword in its collection, given to him in 1947 by Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands. But the library declined to release it or any other original artifact in its collection on the grounds that they are the property of the United States government, which the library is obligated by law to preserve for the American public. Now, before I move on, let me address this, that through a personal email address, obviously they're trying to keep something from the public. It's not a public email address. They're not using their whitehouse.gov email address. They're using their personal Gmail account or whatever it was to keep this off the radar. So it's free from the ability of some journalist or other entity to do a Freedom of Information Act request to see exactly what was going down. They tried to do this in secret. Instead, Mr. Trump wound up giving King Charles a replica sword. And this week, the director of the Eisenhower Library, Todd Arrington, was forced out of his job. It was not immediately clear what led to his ouster, or what role his refusal to hand over the sword might have played. Wait a minute. Come on, New York Times, quit carrying water for Donald Trump. When are we going to stop with this benefit of the doubt bullshit? What do you mean it was not immediately clear what led to his ouster, or that what role his refusal to give the sword played in his being fired or forced out of his job? You're not sure? You're unsure? It's not clear to you? New York Times? Be better, do better. You're missing the moment. Fascism is not at the door, it's in the house. And it's just not clear whether this played a role. Come on. Mr. Arrington, reached by telephone on Thursday, confirmed that he had been pressured to resign. I guess it is pretty clear then, isn't it, New York Times? He said that he had been told that he could no longer be trusted with confidential information. No other explanation was provided, he said, and he added that he had not received any noticeable pushback after his refusal to provide a sword. In an interview, Mr. Arrington expressed dismay that his refusal to provide an Eisenhower sword could have been a factor that led to his forced resignation. Quote, "I never imagined that I would be fired from almost 30 years of government service for this," he said. "I would absolutely come back in a heartbeat." This is what we're losing, by the way. This is what we're losing with Donald Trump culling the ranks of institutional knowledge. We are losing vast amounts of knowledge. This is somebody who's worked for 30 years in this capacity. 30 years of understanding about what is possessed by the Eisenhower Library and the life and legacy of the former president, Dwight D. Eisenhower. And Donald Trump's archives now, the National Archives, which he, before he took office, said was run by radical left lunatics. It's now run by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's never seen an outside cheek or inside the ass of Donald Trump that he didn't want to get his tongue on. It's a completely different organization that forced the hand of this person to quit. because Donald Trump wanted to give away the property of the United States to the King of England, to a monarch. And a guy lost his job because of it. Donald Trump, who has no respects for museums anyway, who's dismantling the Black History and Culture Museum here in Washington, D.C., sending back artifacts to their owners. So the museum is not as, doesn't give as fulsome an understanding of the history and the horrors that were visited upon Black Americans by this government. Because that's too much. We want children to be proud, patriotic, despite what they might learn from facts, from history. So, I mean, look, at least Donald Trump wasn't destroying something. He wanted to just give something away. And he ended up giving away a replica. Hope you enjoy that, sausage-fingered King Charles. And look, if you're from Great Britain and you want me to be a monarchist, you're really barking up the wrong tree. No kings anywhere. No one has any hereditary title or ability to rule or govern or have subjects because of their DNA and their lineage. That's weird and that is stupid. So if you're looking for me to be a fan of monarchy, you've really picked the wrong channel. Anyway, what do you think? You can tell me how wrong I am about monarchy below in the comments. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com if you agree with me that monarchy is stupid and that you should not be ruled or governed or the subject of someone based on who their mom was or who their dad was or who their family was. You can help support this work. For $2 a month, you can become a channel member. Click the join button on YouTube, or you can go over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast and help support this anti-monarchy. I'm really driving it home now. I'm just twisting the knife. You can help support this work. I would appreciate it very much. I hope you have a great weekend. Friday has finally arrived. See if I can take a whole weekend off. I doubt it. I'll probably be back on Sunday. Anyway, I love and appreciate you very much. I'll see you next time. Until then, be genuine and take care of one another.